Some of the habits that kept me safe were the very habits that later kept me stuck. Watching the room, staying useful, asking very little, pushing through exhaustion. For a long time, I thought that that was just who I was. I didn't realise that some of these habits had been learned at a time when I genuinely needed them. They helped me cope and feel a little more in control. And that is what makes them hard to let go of. Because how do you stop doing something that once worked? Maybe you became the capable one, the one who sorted things out, the one people rung, the one who could keep moving when everyone else was falling apart. Maybe you learned to notice every change in someone's voice or mood. Maybe you learned not to ask for much because asking felt incredibly uncomfortable. Or somewhere along the way, it simply became easier to say, I'm fine, I'll manage. And most of the time you did manage. That's the difficult part. These habits can look like strengths. Sometimes they are strengths. I'm grateful for many of the things I learned. I know how to cope when I have to. I would never want to take that away from myself. But I've started asking a different question. Just because I can do something doesn't mean I still need to live that way. Because being capable can quietly become doing everything yourself. Independence can become never letting anybody else help. Caring can become carrying things that really belong to someone else. And strength can become never allowing yourself to say, I can't do this today. That's where something that once protected us can begin to keep us stuck. I think that's why the words, there is no medal for suffering without help, means so much to me anyway. Some of us become incredibly good at suffering quietly, not because we want to suffer, but because we know how to cope. Someone asks if we're all right and we say, yep, I'm fine. Someone offers to help and we say, no, I've got it. We're exhausted and tell ourselves just one more thing. And eventually we become so good at carrying things that other people may not even realise how heavy they are. Sometimes we don't realise either. For me, healing has not meant that all these old ways of coping simply disappear. Sometimes they still show up. I can still feel the urge to sort everything out myself. I can still start planning ahead, fixing, organising, trying to make sure everything will be all right. The difference now is that I notice it more often, and instead of immediately saying, for goodness sake, why am I still doing this? I can sometimes ask myself something gentler. What are you trying to protect me from? That question changes the whole conversation, because an old safety habit does not automatically mean that you've failed or you've gone backwards. It may simply mean that you've learned something very well. Maybe you learned don't depend on anyone. Keep everybody happy. Don't make mistakes. Stay useful. Don't let anybody see you struggling. These messages can stay with us long after the circumstances that created them have changed. And I think there's something compassionate in recognising that. Not letting every old habit run your life. Just understanding where it comes from. Because once I understand something, I have more choices. I can say, I know why you're here. And then ask, do I still need you? Sometimes the answer will be yes. I want to keep my discernment, my independence and my ability to cope. But I don't want those qualities running every minute of my life. I don't want independence to mean isolation. I don't want capability to mean exhaustion. I don't want caring to mean carrying everybody. I don't want awareness to mean never being able to relax. I don't want strength to mean suffering without help. Maybe that's a shift. Not throwing away everything we learned. Learning when we need those skills and when we don't. I can be capable and still ask for help. I can care about someone and still say no. I can be independent and still allow somebody to stand beside me. I can rest before I reach complete exhaustion. That last one has been an important one for me, because when you've spent years measuring yourself by what you can do, rest can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. You sit down and immediately notice another job. You think, I'll just do this first. And suddenly another day has been spent providing that you can keep going. But I've learned something. Capability and sustainability are not the same thing. I may be capable of doing something. That does not automatically mean it is good for me to keep doing it. I may be able to carry something. That does not automatically make it mine to carry. And I may be capable of surviving something. That does not mean survival should be the standard I use for deciding whether something belongs in my life. Survival asks, can I get through this? Life asks, is this how I want to live? I'm not trying to reject the woman who learned how to survive. I respect her. She got me this far, but I don't want her to have to stay on duty every minute anymore. She is allowed to put something down. She is allowed to ask for help. She is allowed to change her mind. She is allowed to choose peace, sometimes instead of endurance. And there is another part of this that I've been noticing too. Sometimes when you begin changing, these old habits the people around you notice before you do, because they may be used to the version of you always saying yes, the version who finds a way, the version who moves things around, takes something else on, makes another phone call, solves another problem. And when that begins to change, it can feel uncomfortable, not only for them, for you too, because suddenly you are doing something unfamiliar. You are pausing. You are thinking before you answer. You are saying, let me get back to you. Or, I actually can't do that today. And sometimes there's a guilt. Sometimes there is the little voice saying, come on, you could do it if you really wanted to. And perhaps you could. But I'm learning that being able to do something is not the same as being available to do it. That has been quite important for me, because I used to think I needed a good enough reason to stop. I had to be exhausted enough, busy enough, unwell enough. There had to be some explanation that made mine acceptable. And these days I'm beginning to understand that sometimes I don't have the capacity for that is enough. Sometimes I need some time for myself is enough. And sometimes I do not need to explain at all. That does not mean I've stopped caring. It means I'm beginning to include myself among the people I care about. And perhaps that is one of the strangest things about changing old survival patterns. At first, healthier choices can actually feel wrong. Not because they are wrong, but because they're unfamiliar. So now, when something healthy feels uncomfortable, I try not to immediately assume discomfort means I should go back. Sometimes I ask, is this actually wrong for me, or is it simply new? Because these are two very different things, and sometimes the new thing is exactly where the freedom begins. Perhaps that is one of the quieter parts of healing, recognizing that something once protected you, being grateful for what it did, and still deciding that you're not have to carry it forever. So if an old habit has shown up for you lately, maybe you don't need to judge it straight away. You might ask, where did I learn this? What did it once do for me? And then, do I still need to live this way now? Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, have a lovely day. Ask questions. What is the one habit that once helped you feel safe but may no longer fit the life you're trying to build? Hey, take care.